topic, hot at hand, making money and saving it, living your best life while you plan for retirement later. So anybody who's a waiter out there knows the ins and the outs, the ups and the downs of waiting tables. It can be a big challenge, especially if you're in some sort of a seasonal job, which creates even more load on your financial situation. So there's going to be 5 big things that come to play when making money. One is working at the right restaurant. Working at the right place is going to allow you to earn enough income to support yourself and to support your family and not have the stresses of the day-to-day be too small. You want to focus on things with asymmetric upside potential. So asymmetric upside potential, what is it? What does it mean? And what is it not? So something with asymmetric upside potential is going to be a job where the clientele have often or sometimes tip in a way that is way too high for what is expected. So the opposite of this is asymmetric downside risk. Asymmetric downside risk is loss, where you're going to be losing a ton of money on something. So having the opportunity to work somewhere that generates, somebody could come in and order something extremely expensive. That's going to be asymmetric upside potential. For example, winning the lottery has a lot of asymmetric upside potential. It's just the odds of winning are very small. So creating a YouTube video has a lot of asymmetric upside potential, because one little video can go viral and you don't know which one it is. So if you were to create 500 pieces of content, there is a good chance that A, you're going to get better through repetition, and B, one of those pieces is going to have what they call a viral for you, VFU, viral for you components to it. So if you're new, if you're just jumping on here, we're talking about some of the benefits and strategies of living a rich life while waiting tables and planning and saving for retirement down the road, some of the bigger stuff. So one of the big things that I have done, and that many folks I've worked with have done, is going to be focusing on 5 big categories in your finances. Now, Ramit Sethi talks a lot about this. If y'all haven't heard about him, he's a great dude to go check out. And he talks about 5 big areas. So one is your rent or your home cost. Your rent, your mortgage, what does that picture look like? How much is that? The second area is going to be your automotive expenses. So your car payment, any sort of major big transportation payments, cars, boats, buses. I don't know about buses. No one drives a bus. So we're not talking about buses here. So pardon that interruption. I just maybe saw a bus go by, didn't actually see a bus go by, but we're not going to be talking about buses. Apparently we are. So back to the no bus conversation. Yeah, your financial costs. So your automobiles. Now look, everybody has their own preference, but if you were to decide to go out and buy a nice used car, so something that's going to be maybe 50,000 to 50 to 80,000 miles on it, clean, good condition, you can pay cash for that automobile if you can save up to have the opportunity to pay cash for that vehicle, then that's going to allow you a lot of flexibility. You're going to have no long-term financing charges, which is a big category that you want to avoid. So financing and fees on automotive financing and related topics, those are going to be big things that set you back in the long run. That money can be used to allocate to doing cool shit now, or cool stuff now. And the other thing it can do is allow you to pay off or support other people who are doing things that you want to support or pay off. That could be student loans, that could be helping family members out, that could be planning for really cool trips and vacations, could be taking friends and family on cool trips and vacations every once in a while. So those are some things that can be helpful and can be advantageous if you decide to spend less on your automobile and transportation costs. So the second category is going to be automobile and transportation costs. Keep those low and keep those at a low level. What is up, Just Sky? Saying hello. Hope you're doing well. Hope you're crushing your day or just enjoying it. Anything you want, really. Thanks for tuning in. So the third big category that a lot of people miss and that Ramit Sethi talks about is no fees on an investment account. So setting up and automating savings and investing, you just boom, have it squirt off into two different accounts. So you get paid, you get $100. Let's say 50 of that goes into your savings account, 20 of that goes into an investment account, and you live off the other 50. Then actually that math didn't make sense at all, but you get the idea, right? And so that's going to be something that allows you to invest while saving and while having money going into your personal account for bills and lifestyle and the normal day-to-day opportunities. And so this is a really interesting idea, and one of the big takeaways is when you have an investment account, whether that's a 401k or some sort of an IRA or some sort of an investment account, whether that's trading crypto, the fees destroy you over your lifetime. And when you look at, if you're buying something here, selling something there, buying something here, selling something there, these little fees, they chip away at the amount that you can be spending or the amount that can be compounding and reinvesting into those portfolios. So having a no fee investment account that you have set up automatic contributions to is going to be one of the major winning factors of this category. So again, this is going to allow you to spend money on really cool stuff now while saving and planning for a nice, comfortable retirement, all while being automated. So you want to to recap, you want to take a look at your rent and home living. That's going to be one. We haven't covered that one yet. Your automobile expenses. Try to buy a used car, something between 30 to 80,000 miles. You can go even higher if car is not something you care about. But again, this is just going to be used for transportation. You're going to have lower insurance costs, lower repair costs, and no financing charges on the money you borrow to buy the vehicle. So those are going to be a big one. The next one is no fee investment accounts. So that's the one we just discussed. The next one that we're going to talk about is a little bit obscure, but it's lowering your living expenses, your rent or your home ownership amounts. And so, what is up, Jordan? Wow. What do you think about the wow there, Jordan? What's the wow for? So yeah, living below your means a little bit, being considerate of perhaps not owning a home. Home ownership doesn't necessarily need to be the dream that everybody sells you on. A lot of real estate people, a lot of people in the finance business, so the entire mortgage industry, the entire all of the secondary mortgage industries, those groups, those businesses that rotate around that, or the spin off from that, the entire real estate industry, all the people who were supported by the real estate industry from a residential real estate perspective are incentivized to pitch the idea of buying and owning a home. Now, it's not necessarily the best thing for most people. A lot of people can't afford the home that they want to live in. They can't, and they don't want to live where they can buy a home. So if you want to live on the beach or close to the beach because you love the ocean or you love the environment, you love the vibes, you can't afford to live there, it might be a good idea to rent while you're saving and living your life in a different way. So there's a huge discussion around not owning a home. Again, your investment is going to be in other areas of your life. It doesn't have to be in owning this home that many people don't care about and frankly aren't qualified to own. So they end up, a lot of the equity gets chewed away when you have to buy a new roof for your house. You're paying the roofer. You got to replace the main drains. You're paying the plumber. You're doing some gardening. You're financing. So every 5 or 6 years, you're going to move. Let's say every 7 or 8 years, you're going to move. So now a lot of the equity that you've saved gets rolled back up, and you got to pay a real estate agent. You got to pay a mortgage company for all of these transaction fees that are taking place. So home ownership may not be right for most people. So considering that, and having rent at a place that's safe and stable. So safe and stable are key. A safe and stable living environment is going to contribute a lot more to your happiness, your well-being, and your productivity than just owning a home. So there's two different sides to the home ownership piece. I'm a fan of not owning a home. So that's just for me, but I think there's a lot of value in that. And so that's a big way to save on your money and on all of the things that you're going to be spending in life. So another big category or something else to think about is going to be healthy relationships and deep relationships. So learning to build healthy relationships with friends and family and building deeper relationships within your community is going to be helpful to having less depression, less anxiety. You can slowly, if it's acceptable for you or if it's appropriate for you, coming off of some sort of these various different types of medications that some folks might be on. A lot of folks are addicted to drugs and alcohol, or just use too much of them in their day-to-day life or their weekly lives or their monthly lives. So a progression off of these drug and alcohol compounds can be very beneficial to one's satisfaction and fulfillment in life. And so these are going to be some of the big areas that have been critical for living a healthy, wealthy life now while waiting tables and being a waiter. You can apply this to any career if you want. And saving and contributing to a meaningful, sustainable retirement when you're older. Again, so you want to live a good life now and not stress about buying an appetizer, going on a trip, buying a plane ticket, or buying gifts for people, or a car repair, maybe helping out another friend or family financially. We want to be able to do those things now while saving and planning for a healthy, wealthy retirement in the future. So the key things that we do now are you have to win on these big fronts of life, these big fronts of financial and personal lives. And so another area that we're going to that I'd like to talk about is getting these salary negotiation bumps. So if y'all are working for a company, let's say you're paid hourly, or you're a gig worker and you're getting paid by the job, or you could even apply this if you own your own business. But if your first job is $50,000 a year, and you take your next job a year or 2 years later, you might start at $55,000 a year, because you're gonna say, oh, I'm not gonna take anything lower, but I will take something slightly more. Hey, I'm making $50K, I'm gonna take $55K. Okay, now let's take the second example. Somebody comes in and they take a $50,000 job, but they say, hey, I'm not gonna I'll do the work, but in 6 months I'm gonna negotiate a raise to $55,000. That's not that much of a bump. You're gonna negotiate a raise to $55,000 every 6 months. So you're there for 2 years and you've negotiated 4 $5,000 raises. You follow the math there? Pretty simple. Every 6 months, you renegotiate your salary. That's the skill that you want to learn. Salary negotiation. It's critical. Over 20 or 30 or 40 years of work, this salary negotiation skill is gonna compound so high. I love your videos. Keep it up. Nothing can stop you. You're amazing. Oh my gosh. Thank you so much. appreciate the kind words. The goal here is to keep it up and to continue. So much appreciated. Thanks for tuning in. We're talking about salary negotiation and how learning this skill of salary negotiation not only can transform your life, but can transform other people's lives that you work with and know and live with. So this can be your daughter, this can be your mom, this can be your wife, this can be your brother, your husband, your nephew, your niece. If you learn salary negotiation every 6 months, you can get your salary bumped. This is the example I was discussing. You go from 50,000 to 55,000, right? And then another 6 months you go from 55,000 to 60,000. These bumps aren't too high. And if you're doing the work anyway, you try to do better work and get that salary increase. There's a whole process to doing this. It's not rocket science, and it's done by many people out there. If you learn the skill, it'll pay off for you, your family, and for generations to come. You can live a much better, much more fulfilled life in the work that you're doing and in the money that you're earning. So let's say you work at this $50,000 job, you leave the job and you're making $60,000. So when you take the next job, you're gonna come in and say, hey, instead of making 60, I wanna make $65,000. So in 2 years, you take another job and you're making $65,000 versus the other situation where you didn't do any salary negotiation and you went from job A to job B, and you went from $50,000 and you just said, hey, I want to make a little bit more. So you said, I want to make $55,000. Now look at those differences. You're going from, in 2 years, you're starting a new job. One, you're making $55,000, and the other, you're making $65,000. That's a $10,000 increase for doing the same work. Now the beauty of this is, fast forward 20 years, you're not going to be working at a $60,000 job. You're going to have progressed maybe every 3 or 4 years to a different job, but you're going to have learned salary negotiation, and you're going to have bumped up your wage so that your earning is exponentially higher over the course of the 20 years. So this amount of money that you can be making over the lifetime is going to allow you to buy a new car, pay for your kids' student loans, go on trips all over the world, pay for some health benefit, if somebody in your family has some health problems and you want to support them, you'll be able to contribute in a meaningful way. You'll be able to do some cool stuff. You'll be able to go buy appetizers, take your friends to concerts, play the latest games, buy some new technology, do some of these things that are really important that a lot of folks don't know how to do and have never done. So salary negotiation is one of the coolest, best kept secrets in living a wealthy life now and planning for a rich life down the road. So if there's anything you can take away from this, Google salary negotiation tips and tricks, or salary negotiation from Ramit Sethi. And they talk about, he's a gentleman who teaches people these skills. And so anyway, that's in a nutshell how to live a fantastic life now and how to save and invest money automatically, even if you don't have a lot of it. You could be in debt, you could be climbing out of debt, you can be in between jobs, or you can have a great, nice, stable career or business. Doing these things is going to allow you to have clarity now and peace of mind in the future. And so again, so to get really tactical here on some of the things that I've done and Ramit Sethi talks about, so instead of having multiple bank accounts at different banks and all this kind of shit, it can be really confusing. Have 1 to 2 banks. I personally have 2. I like the separation of those 2 banks. Charles Schwab and Fidelity are fantastic banks that don't charge fees on their investment accounts. So you can just go in there, make sure that there's no fee charged on your investment account, no annual fee and no trading fees. and you can set up these investments. Some of them are called, there's a name for them, it's slipping my mind, but it's going to be a target date investment fund. So if you want to retire when you're 65 and you're 23 right now, you set a target date. So when you're 65, it does the math, it reverse engineers the risk tolerance of the blend of assets that are in this. It sounds complex, but it's not, and it's all done for you. So a target date investment fund, and then all you do is set up, hey, I want to send $50 a month, or I want to send $500 a week. Boom, 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 automatic. It pulls it out of your savings account, your checking account, and it goes into that account. Super straightforward, super easy. The next thing pulls $5, $10, $20, $500, $1,000 out of your paycheck or out of your checking account and goes into your savings account. Automatically goes into that account. So you're squirting into two of these accounts. You don't see any of it, and the rest is left in your bank account that you can spend on bills, expenses, car payments, anything you have to do to live, just your living expenses, all the kind of shit you have to do to live. And so this is a super cool strategy to use, and you don't have to think about it. See, it takes out this thing called decision fatigue. So you don't get overwhelmed with decisions, and you don't get overwhelmed with buying this and doing that and working here and working there. Decision fatigue can destroy you. You want to be focused on doing the coolest shit, or taking a nap, or walking your dog, or playing with your kids, or making YouTube videos, goofing around in the mountains, or swimming in the ocean, or learning to play a new instrument. Got any musicians out there? Say what's up if you got any musicians out there. Or you've been jamming on a new song that you like lately. It could be a song in a game. It could be a song you've heard from anyway. Let me know. So any musicians out there, say what's up. Put a little note in the comment of what you've been playing, what song you've been learning, where you've been getting your inspiration. That's been something that's been fun on my mind, is playing this new drum that I've got. It's called a hand pan. Anyone hear of a hand pan out there? Not sure. Anyway, so these are some really cool crafty things that I've done, being able to wait tables. Now, the cool thing about waiting tables is you have this flexibility in your schedule. So there's pros and cons to this, mind you. There are pros and cons to this. And so what we want to do is, or what I've been able to do is, you have a set number of days that you work a week, right? So it could be 4 or 5 days. It could be 6 days if you're grinding. Still, if you're grinding and you're working 6 days a week, that's like 40 hours. At a particular place where I'm working, these are not long shifts if you get into the right place. So that's something that can be really beneficial, is finding the right place. More on that later, how to find a good restaurant to work at. But you dial it in, and you start to get a consistency. You start to learn your craft. You start to learn your clientele. You start to add more value to your team. And then you start to branch out. You start to share stuff with your community, like we're doing right now. We're just chatting it up. And you get out there a little bit. You start to mix it up. You start to stimulate the brain. You start to get the blood flow going. And those are going to be some things that are going to be really helpful. So you find a good job. You're working some good hours, and then you have some free time to go do other things. If you want to say, for instance, you want to go to school, there's a lot of folks who I work with who go to school. It's interesting. I work with a blend, everything from about 65 years old all the way down to about 20. And these folks are crushing it. Some of them are in school. Some of them are supporting other family members. Some of them are single and just kind of living their best life. Some people like myself, I do a lot of traveling. So I will take 2 to 3 to 4 months off a year and completely off of work and just go travel. I'll go to various places around the world and hit up some cool spots. Recently, in my videos, we made one on Bali. There are these bats. They're called mega bats. Have you ever heard of a mega bat? These things are crazy. They are huge. Their wingspan can be as big as a human, 6 feet at times. A mega bat. So anyway, was traveling, was out in Indonesia, and we were driving along this road, and we saw these mega bats. And so they're fruit bats. They're also called fruit bats. Now, these bats are not poisonous. They do not bite people, but they're super exotic, right? Like, I've never seen a fruit bat. And so we pulled over the side of the road, and we were able to feed these giant fruit bats, these mega bats, bananas and some little pieces of fruit, and they're kind of like swatting each other with their wings, and they look vicious and they look crazy, but you get them on your arm, these big hooks, these big talons, they're hooking onto your arms and they're hanging like this. It's crazy. And you see these things, and it was just really interesting. So we were able to see some Bali fruit bats, some mega bats in Indonesia out in Bali. And then a little bit later in the year, I was able to get out to Thailand. So in Thailand, they had some crazy stuff. Elephants, like full-blown massive elephants. We were able to feed them bananas. These elephants one of them was over 90 years old. So they have like a similar lifespan that humans do. So you're interacting with these majestic species all over the world. You ever seen these elephants out in Bali, out in Thailand, are just incredible. Now we went to one. If you go or if you want to go, we went to one, and I encourage people to do this. They're the ones where they don't injure or harm the elephants, and so riding the elephants for entertainment purposes is considered to be a little bit abusive, but a lot of people do it because it's exciting. Of course, who doesn't want to ride an elephant? I would want to ride an elephant, but it's supposed to be a little bit more abusive to the animal. And so no riding the elephants. That's kind of one of the rules we like to maintain. And went to Thailand, got to feed some elephants, and saw this giant python. We were in downtown Bangkok taking this bicycle tour through the city, and there was all this crazy stuff going on. And all of a sudden, in this fish market in the middle of nowhere, all these crazy buildings, tons of people around. This is not in the jungle or in the wild. There was this massive, I think it was a boa constrictor, it was a python, a massive python. This guy had it by its tail, and it was pulling it out of this hole. So what happened, and all these people are shouting and they're yelling, and there's this big crowd around this python. And we stopped on our bikes and jumped off. We're like, what the heck's going on? And this guy's holding this python by the tail. And it turns out that this python, it was like 10 feet long. I have pictures of it. They made a video down below. Scroll through the videos if you want to see a snake in Bangkok. It's crazy. But this thing, it had eaten some of the fish from the fish market, and then this giant 12-foot python had gone down this hole in the middle of the city. This is where people live. And this giant snake was trying to escape, and this guy grabbed it by its tail, and so he's like, what the hell do I do with this giant snake, right? So he's yelling, he's screaming, and these other people are trying to help, and this lady took this giant hook and pulled the top of this hole open. There was this giant concrete block that was keeping this hole open. Pulled it open, and they were able to pull this giant snake out of this hole. And so they pulled this python out, and then all of a sudden everybody spreads. Boom! They spread all over the place. And this python's trying to bite people. It's like it's coiling back and then snapping forward. Oh, it was crazy. We were watching it from a distance. I have it on video though. It's absolutely insane. And this python is snapping at people, and then all of a sudden this lady puts this giant piece of metal kind of on the neck of the python, and it trapped it, right? And then they were able to, and then she went up and grabbed it right below the head, and they were able to put the body of the python in a big burlap sack, like an old rice bag, a giant bag for like a 50-pound bag of rice. They were able to put that in there. And so anyway, it was crazy traveling the world. But these are some things that you can do if and only if you do a little bit of planning and you prepare for some of these things in your life ahead of time. So the goal is to live a rich life now while planning for a rich, stable, secure, and comfortable life in the future. And so That's the takeaway. Just to recap, these are 5 things you can do as a waiter to make sure you have a financially fit life now. You're living the dreams now while planning for a really rich life in the future. 1 is lowering your automobile expenses, buying a used car. Make sure you can pay cash for it. It's going to keep your insurance low, your maintenance low, and keep your payment. You're not going to pay any interest. The second thing is to rent a house below your means so that you can keep your living expenses low. Third is automate an investment account with no fees. So no fees on an investment account will save you tens, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars over your lifetime. And one of the last things you can do is learn how to negotiate your salary. That's gonna change your life. Thanks for watching.